we're going to begin that first Pac-12 whip around in Los Angeles, where the USC Trojans began their season with a win, but it's probably a win that felt a little bit like a loss, not necessarily on the scoreboard, but because of what they actually did lose on the field. Their starting quarterback, JT Daniels, down with an ACL injury and done for the season. Ryan Abraham covers them. You can find him at Inside Troy. He's with USCFootball.com. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
Pretty good, Bill. Yeah, win that feels like a loss. It's kind of been USC's MO, except last year where they lost 7 games. But even when they win, it just doesn't seem to feel good.
Well, it didn't start that way the other night. The new air raid offense that Graham Harrell brought with him, at least in the early going, looked great the other night, and then it kind of changed. So you give me your feel from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, and what was kind of the vibe with Clay Helton and the guys after the game?
Yeah, the first half, those first 2 drives looked great. And I think the air raid did pay dividends. They just had this gumbo scheme before. They had a better scheme. They turned the ball over in the red zone a couple of times. But I feel like they were just a couple execution errors away from having a really good first half with JT Daniels, where last year there were just so many other things that went wrong. But then once JT Daniels goes down, you bring in a true freshman, Keaton Slovis, and from there it was more, he only threw 8 passes in the second half. They just ran the football more. But for USC, it was really important to kind of get going early. They did that, but the injury, I think, is really going to set them back this year.
So, obviously, Daniels is done for the season. Do they stick with the true freshman? It almost felt like Clay Helton left the door open for a guy like Jack Sears to come back. What's your vibe on that right now?
Yeah, we kind of asked Clay Helton about that on his conference call and after the game, and he's all in. We know that Graham Harrell loves Keaton Slovis. I mean, he has no experience, obviously, being a true freshman, and you have both Jack Sears. You had Jack Sears and Matt Fink, who had played in games. Jack Sears started a game last year. Then when he was named 4th on the depth chart, went to the transfer portal. We weren't sure if an injury happened, if they would actually go with one of the more veteran guys. They're not. They're sticking with Slovis. He's going to get the majority of reps. We're going to go to practice later today, and he's going to get the majority of the first-team reps. So they're rolling the dice with a true freshman, and that's what they determined would be the best chance for this team to win.
All right, quarterback aside, what did you like, what didn't you like about the game on Saturday night and moving forward towards Stanford?
Yeah, I mean, I did like the way the offense moved the ball. I liked the way they played a lot of 4-man front, and I think they did a good job of stopping the run up the middle. Defensively, though, they really had a hard time containing the outside, especially with the quarterback. He was able to run and complete some passes late in the game. There's some issues in the secondary, but they did get that big interception late in the game to kind of seal it. And offensively, I thought there would be much more of a rotation. Really, the 6 guys caught passes, Bill, on the first drive of the game for USC. No one outside of those 6 guys caught a pass for the rest of the game. We were told there were going to be 10 wide receivers used. It was really just 3. So a little concerning there. They didn't get much more of a rotation going on the offense. In the first half, when they ran 50 plays, it was still those 3 main guys.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for coming on today. Much appreciated. We'll talk to you soon.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan Abraham. USCFootball.com, and Inside Troy is where you'll find him on Twitter. Team they played this week out of the Stanford Cardinal, they also had the injury bug get them and also had it with their starting quarterback. The question is, how bad? I don't think it's season-ending with K.J. Costello, but they did lose a left tackle, too. Scott Reese, the play-by-play voice of the Stanford Cardinal, kind enough to join us for a couple of minutes here. Hey, Scotty.
Billy, how are you?
Doing fantastic. My question for you is, what's the status of K.J. Costello? We know J.T. Daniels is out. What's Costello's status?
So that's a good question, one which is probably being answered right about now as Coach Shaw does his weekly news conference. I am not at Stanford currently, so all I can do is continue to speculate that we're talking about a head injury / concussion, and I don't imagine he will play this week, but we'll probably know a lot more within the next 15, 20 minutes. In fact, it might already be floating around on Twitter, but I'm in the car, so I can't check it.
Well, let me tell you, because it is floating around on Twitter, Shaw said Costello is questionable for the game. Decision will be made Thursday or Friday, but Walker Little is out until midseason.
Yeah, I did see the Walker Little news, and it's good news, bad news, because you see a guy with that much weight go down with an obvious knee injury, and obviously you think the worst, you think ACL, you think out for the season. So the fact that it's only a dislocated kneecap, I guess, is what they're saying. So missing a month is certainly better than missing the season. But honestly, the Costello loss, if he can't play this week, is certainly significant. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, but I've got a lot of faith in Davis Mills, who's the number 2 guy at Stanford. For me, Walker Little might be the most indispensable player on this roster just because of the lack of depth at that left tackle position, really on the entire offensive line.
Tell us about the backup quarterback. He obviously played most of the second half, all of the second half against Northwestern.
Yeah, so Davis Mills was actually the number one rated quarterback coming out of high school 3 years ago in his recruiting class. But he tore his ACL senior year in high school. Then he tore his ACL again as a true freshman at Stanford. He wasn't going to play anyway. He was redshirting. And then last year, he played one series of garbage time early in the year. And running out of bounds, he tweaked his knee again. Now, he didn't tear the ACL, but he missed another month to 6 weeks of action. So we're talking about a lot of wear and tear on his knee, which has kept him off the field. That said, he's played in the spring. He had a lot of reps in August because KJ took a lot of time off this fall. And I tell you what, Davis Mills looks like the real deal. I mean, physically, he looks like Andrew Luck in terms of the build, in terms of the arm strength, the way he throws the ball. No question, he throws the prettiest ball of any of the quarterbacks on the roster. He's not battle-tested, and you have the injury worries, but he has the pedigree and the ability to be a pretty special quarterback given the chance.
So my question for you is your overall takeaway from week one, including the injuries, and looking ahead to USC this weekend.
Yeah, the injuries put a damper on what I thought otherwise was a really nice performance. You know, there's a lot of questions defensively, and I thought the defensive unit acquitted itself very, very well, really at all three levels. I was pleasantly surprised by the linebackers because we really didn't know what we had, certainly inside, and I thought those guys, particularly Ricky Miezan, who's a lacrosse player that they signed a couple of years ago, number 2 lacrosse player in the nation. They turned him into a linebacker, and he's going to play a lot, and Curtis Robinson I thought was really good. So the defense was really, really solid. Obviously, the stats and the score reflects that. And offensively, you know, I was pretty pleased given that, you know, you're playing the second half with a backup quarterback. I thought even though they didn't light up the scoreboard, they did move the football against a really good Northwestern front seven, and they were able to run it a little bit, which, of course, as you know, last year was really the bugaboo of the team.
Hey, Scott, thanks for jumping on today. Much appreciated. We'll talk to you soon.
No problem, Billy.
Thank you. Scott Reese, play-by-play voice of the Stanford Cardinal. And again, that news was just breaking as we were talking with Scott. KJ Costello questionable for Saturday's game against USC. Concussion protocol there. And then, of course, Walker Little, their All-American left tackle, is out for a month with a knee issue. Maybe the biggest revelation of the weekend, just simply because we didn't know, was the quarterback play at Washington State. We should probably by now know that Mike Leach can find a guy, but boy, Anthony Gordon's first half was unbelievable. In his first 15 passes, threw for 332 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half, and they rolled past New Mexico State. I don't know if Alex Brink ever had a first half like that when he was playing on the Palouse. He's the color analyst for the Washington State Cougars. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Fantastic. So you're probably a little bit closer to it than the rest of us up there in Pullman. Did you have this type of expectation for Anthony Gordon, or were even you a little surprised by those numbers?
Well, I was certainly surprised by the numbers. I mean, that hot start, you go 15 for 15, and then he has drop, and then he hits his next 7 heading into halftime and missed one throw the entire first half. It's pretty dang impressive for a guy making his first start. At the same time, I mean, we kind of should know by now, right, that Mike Leach's success, especially with fifth-year quarterbacks, we've seen it before at Texas Tech. After Cliff Kingsbury, you had B.J. Simmons, Sonny Cumbie, those guys 3 in a row that were all really productive. Simmons threw for 5,800 yards his 5th year. So it's been done before. Anthony Gordon is a very talented passer, but you never know until the live bullets start flying. So he passed his first test with flying colors, but definitely, not a significant challenge in regards to New Mexico State's defense.
No, New Mexico State's pretty bad, but those numbers are still impressive regardless. What question got answered for you that maybe you had that you couldn't, quarterback aside, question that maybe got answered for you the other night that you couldn't see in practice?
To me, a big piece of the puzzle is going to be what the secondary does for Washington State, and I was really impressed. You have 2 junior college transfers at the safety positions, Daniel Isom and Bryce Beekman. They both played pretty well. There's a couple early communication issues, which led to New Mexico State's only touchdown. But after that, got cleaned up, which is what you want to see, right? There's going to be a little bit of transition for guys making the JUCO jump to obviously playing the Division I level, and so to me, I think there was at least the start of seeing that secondary come together, but that's going to get tested, certainly when you get into Pac-12 play and in a couple weeks at Houston. So to me, that's a good start. They can play and they're talented, and so that there's something to be said to that.
I told your broadcast partner last night that game in 25 days could be a dandy here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I tell you what, I mean, the way Utah looked, that defense, we know about it, but just in general, I think the strength of both teams, could be a fun one in Salt Lake City. I'm fired up for it. I've actually never been down to a game there, so that's on a personal level, I'm fired up for it.
Hey, thanks for coming on today, Alex. Really appreciate it. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks.
There you go. Alex Brink, color analyst, former Washington State quarterback, with us here, and that was the Pac-12 whip around today.